Hey Baylor fans, this is your call to gear up with Harley-Davidson of Waco. Whether you're hitting the open road or tailgating at McLean Stadium, we've got the ride to match your Bear pride. Check out our wide selection of new and pre-owned motorcycles, visit our service department, or shop all the latest gear and accessories to show off your Baylor spirit and Harley pride. Visit us today and find your freedom on two wheels. Harley-Davidson of Waco, where Baylor fans never ride alone. Visit in-store or at hdwaco.com. Sic Em Bears.
Derrel Luce, welcome to the Sic Em Podcast. We appreciate you being on with us.
Thanks, John.
Good to see you. This is a big year for you guys, the 74 team, 50th anniversary. Maybe you've noticed that. Maybe somebody's told you. It's going to be fun celebrating that 74 team, that season all year.
It is. We're all getting older, but as I always like to tell people, when I was in elementary school, 70 was life expectancy. So I figure we're on house money right now.
That's really good. Let's go back to you getting to Baylor. You were a senior in 74, so you came in as part of Bill Beal's final recruiting class. Is that right?
Yes, that was the fall of 1971.
Okay.
People that graduated in 71 from high school, and the prize of our recruiting class was Robert Armstrong. I think he was certainly the top recruit in Texas and one of the top nationally. They played a high school all-star game back then.
Yeah.
And that was about the time, like if Joe Namath threw for 300 yards in an NFL game, it was national news.
Right.
I mean, that was like somebody setting a new strikeout or a new home run record,
Right.
or something. It was a huge deal. And, Robert came in and he and Neil sort of alternated at quarterback our freshman year. But then, somehow Neil ended up winning the job.
How about that? And that was freshmen weren't eligible during those days, right?
Yes, that was the biggest waste of a year. You wonder how people that are supposed to be intelligent can get in a room and come up with that system.
Yeah, right. Did you play a freshman schedule?
5 games.
Did you? Okay. The Cubs.
Freshmen were not eligible.
Yeah. All right. So then after your freshman year, coaching change, Bill Beal's gone, somebody named Grant Teaff comes in. What do you remember about the transition and the hiring of Coach Teaff?
Well, it wasn't as smooth or as fast as you just said it.
Right.
I don't remember exactly when they made the decision. They certainly didn't consult us to terminate Coach Beal. His record, in college football would sort of require it, even though he was a great man and apparently an esteemed defensive coordinator at LSU before he came here. But when they let him go, it might have been before the last game. I don't know, because I was on the freshman team. Our season was over. We played 5 games. And then they were, what was that guy's name? Johnny Majors was in the mix, talking about him. I think he was at maybe Tennessee at that time.
Okay, maybe.
He ended up going to Pittsburgh and having a pretty good run after that. And then there was another guy that, I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name, but I think it verbally accepted the job. And the rumor is
Rudy Feldman.
Yeah, the rumor is came to town and either his wife looked around and says, "No, we're leaving."
Right.
And the other story that's often told that I'm sure is true, and Jack Patterson wouldn't have said it, is that Coach Teaff was the one that he really wanted, but thought he couldn't sell it to whoever made the decision, I guess the Board of Regents, as an unknown. And I've heard Coach Patterson say many times, well, this is the guy I really wanted, and he's the one I got anyway.
Interesting.
But it was pretty long because we had already gone through the Johnny Majors courtship and the Rudy Feldman courtship. So we had assistants like Mickey Sullivan, Bill Hicks, Pat Culpepper, that were holdovers from the Beal regime. That were kind of talking to the people, keeping them on campus. Because it wasn't as hard back then, because there wasn't anybody offering you money to go somewhere else, and and if you transferred, it was almost impossible to get eligible again.
Wow, yeah, different world then, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So you didn't even consider transferring, really, did you? You just waiting to see
I did not consider it. I'm pretty sure I would have if things were like they were now, just because nothing to knock against Baylor, but when you play football, it's a big part of your life. A lot goes into it, and it's not fun to lose. Mm-hmm. And there's not much one person can do to change that outcome.
Right. So Coach Teaff comes in. Do you remember your first meeting with him or the team's first introduction to Coach Teaff?
I really don't. I remember he was, as he was throughout the next 3 years, he was a very goal-oriented person. Mm-hmm. He was a very scripted person. He wasn't let's just let it come to you and let life happen. Mm-hmm. His thoughts were you needed to have goals and set them out and state them and then try to will them into action.
His first years would have been your sophomore year, 5 wins, pretty good. Surprised a lot of people, didn't it?
Oh, we were the talk of the town.
Yeah, I bet.
mean, it was 5 wins, but it could have been a lot better than that. I mean, we played Georgia pretty tough in their place. We actually beat Missouri. We won a few close games. We were late in the season, tied with Texas going into the fourth quarter. And then they put together a couple of drives. And, in 1972, a 14-point victory was convincing.
Yeah, I bet that's right.
And then when we lost a couple we could have won. And but 5 and 6 was 2 more than they'd won the 3 previous years put together.
Yeah, true. 73 drops off a little bit. What were the expectations for the team going into the 74 season?
Boy, you kind of skipped over that.
I did. I just moved right on past 73.
I'd say that we ran off a cliff without the emergency brake on.
Oh, really?
But,
in 73?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you like how I just moved on past that?
Lost all 9 conference games. The defense was a wreck. Offense was a wreck. There wasn't much good to be said. We, as a coach, you could probably see some of it coming. We had some good senior leadership on the 72 team. Of course, everybody knows about Roger Gorey, so I don't have to say anything about that. He's one of the best players in Baylor history. But we also had, a couple of other. We had Paul Savage at linebacker and Ed Taylor at linebacker and Tommy Stewart at safety. And Tommy was the eraser. They called him the Bullet.
Yeah.
He was the kind of guy that could stop the big play. If a running back found a crease, Tommy would chop him down.
Wow.
He'd break up the deep pass.
Yeah.
And in 73, that was exactly the defense's problem. We gave up a ton of big plays. We had inexperience in the secondary, and I don't know if we didn't replace Tommy's talent or the people were new and just got in the wrong places, but it seemed like every time somebody got through the line of scrimmage, they'd score. I mean, Colorado did it. Texas Tech did it just innumerable times. We played Arkansas, who had Dickie Morton, who was a good enough running back to play a few years with the Steelers. And he had 2 60, 70-yard runs.
Wow.
They beat us 13-7.
Wow.
I mean, really? 2 plays on offense.
Yeah, 2 plays.
And so, I'm sure Coach Teaff has told you that he could see the improvement and things were coming around. But from my perspective, the things that I saw that happened, Coach Culpepper decided to pursue other opportunities. Our defense just gave up too many big plays. The offense turned the ball over too much. And neither one of those things are conducive to winning.
Yeah.
But they brought in Corky Nelson from high school. He brought in a very simplistic approach. They brought in 2 freshmen cornerbacks, Ron Burns and Scooter Reed. And Scooter was a track star.
Okay.
So he helped a little bit on chasing people down, in those long plays. And Ron was very physical. He was like a linebacker.
Yeah.
And we played, I think, 9 wishbone teams.
Is that right?
Yes.
Good grief.
So, pass coverage was not the most important thing. The most important thing was stop the run, and those guys helped with that. Ken Quisenberry, became a starter, and he helped with that. We got Wharton Foster on the defensive line to go with Joe Johnson, which gave us 2. Joe was, in my opinion, the best player on the team. He wasn't big, but he was just always good.
Right.
So that gave us 2 outstanding defensive linemen. Don Bockhorn came back from injury the year before, so he and I were playing linebacker along with Johnny Slaughter. And Robert Wygant played some with those 2 freshmen. And we just played an incredibly simplistic defense. We just play. Don't think, just play. I don't care how smart you are. When you're playing defensive football, if you just try to start thinking after the play starts,
Right.
you're not going anywhere.
You're lost.
You've got analysis paralysis and your feet are stuck in the ground. You've got to do your thinking before the play starts, anticipate, and then just go. And Corky did a good job of putting people in position to do that, and we were a lot better.
So I knew Corky later, not then. Did he come in with that same spit and vinegar his first year as he developed later?
No, he was, this is 50 years ago. Most coaches were pretty much spit and vinegar, as you'd call it, or blood and guts.
Yeah.
But he was pretty simplistic, and he said everybody is on the same footage. There's no positions there, and I kind of blinked my eyes and said, even me? And
right.
And I remember we played against Oklahoma, and they were favored by about 50. And you have to remember the year before, I'm digressing, but to show, you asked earlier, after the 72 season, what were the expectations going to 73? We were actually picked by a few people to beat Oklahoma.
Wow.
They'd had a little bit of a scandal of some sort. I don't know what it was, but their starting quarterback, Kerry Jackson from Galveston, Texas, wasn't on the team anymore. I don't even remember why.
Okay.
I don't know if it was grades or he transferred, but when I say scandal, this is more of they were sort of in a flux. They didn't have a quarterback. They didn't have anybody to play any time at quarterback. Then a guy named Steve Davis comes in, and he was kind of like a James Street kind of guy. He wasn't known to be that flashy or great at anything, but they ran the wishbone. He executed well. They had a lot of speed, and they did great. And they killed us the first game.
Yeah.
So we went downhill from there. Let's just say enough about that. Well, then we go into Oklahoma this year, and they're like the returning national champs, and they're favored by 50, and that's like being favored by 100 now.
Right.
And we played them till, once again, like we did Texas in 72, probably to a tie in the third quarter. And the big things different on the team that I saw, and you have to remember, people wonder, they say, well, what was the offense doing? I say, I don't know. Our backs were to them. They were on their side of the field.
Yeah.
We were on our side. We met in separate rooms.
Yeah.
We saw the other players at night, but we didn't know what they were doing in practice.
Interesting.
And the big difference was we figured out we had Steve Beard on our roster. Now, we had him on the roster the year before, but I don't know where he was.
Use that guy.
Well, what Steve said was that he approached one of the coaches one time and said, Coach, why'd you bring me in here if you're not going to play me? And they said, well, Steve, we just hadn't dialed your number yet. And Steve said, he flipped him a dime, says, well, I'm easy to find, Coach. Here's my number.
Give me a call. That's great. So that was a big turning point.
Yeah, well, Steve, he played a little bit at the end of the season. Gary Lacey was our starting tailback, and I think he was good. Mm-hmm. He got an injury, and Steve came in and did real well. And I told him, man, you got it now, Steve. And then he played a little bit and then still didn't have it. But he took control of that spot the next year, and we cut down our turnovers on offense, and I think Alcee Jackson might have been a freshman, and he and Ricky Thompson gave us a little bit more of a threat than we'd had at a receiver before.
Right.
And, the first two games, we thought we had a chance. We were to the fourth quarter against Oklahoma. We were about to have Missouri score on us to go ahead, and they fumbled, and Charlie McClanahan ran it back 99 yards to put us back in the lead.
Wow.
But then we lost that game on a late drive, and I don't really remember why, but we just did. It's a game we should have won, and I do remember we're playing Oklahoma State the third game, and they were ranked high.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but
Eighth,
I think it could have been. Yeah,
I think number 8.
Pretty good, and we beat them pretty good, like 35-15 or 16 or something in that range.
Which was huge, right? Coming off 2 tough losses at Oklahoma State and to beat them.
I'll be frank. I was not feeling good that, here we go again.
Right.
We've blown 2 games. We have a chance to win. We've got a great team coming in. We cannot do this again. And it just clicked that game, and they were a good team. I mean, I think they had a couple of NFL running backs, and it wasn't Barry Sanders, but it was somebody really good, and we won that game. And then we went to Florida State, and Florida State's been a little like Baylor in the last 30 years. They've been really good at times and really bad at times, and I think several times too.
Right.
I think they were kind of in the bottom 10 with us back then.
It's hard to believe, but that's probably true.
No, I think I think in the year before in '72 they definitely were.
Okay.
But sometime they had a big homecoming, and Burt Reynolds was down there to promote the longest yard.
Yeah.
And the halftime went overtime, and Les Benson picked up the band director and carried him off the field, and we somehow managed to be losing at halftime. Against it, we just beat number 8, and we were losing at halftime. But I think we pulled it out like 21-14. So sometimes you got to win an ugly one during a winning streak.
Story goes that Coach Teaff said, "Somebody get that guy off the field," talking about the band director. And Les Benson took him seriously.
I didn't know about it at the time, because we're all stuffed back in a tunnel coming out there, but that's the story I've heard too.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think Bubba Hicks claims he saw it.
That's great.
He'd be out kicking, early.
That's true. He would like to be, except for the band and Burt Reynolds on the field.
Yeah.
So back-to-back wins, it ends up Oklahoma State and Florida State. And was there a non-conference game after that, or you go into Southwest Conference play?
No. Young people today don't really understand the difference in the non-conference schedule. We played Oklahoma, Missouri, Oklahoma State, and Florida State.
Yeah.
Those are your 4 non-conference games.
That's tough.
I think back then Baylor was just looking for a paycheck.
Yeah.
We were the Tarletons coming in. So that was the philosophy, I think.
That's tough.
Play a road game, get a big check. And so then who did we open with? I think it was Arkansas.
Okay.
Is that right?
Maybe. I'm sorry, I don't have it top of mind.
Huge game. I mean, nobody knows that, that we wouldn't be talking about this. I wouldn't be here. I probably wouldn't have had any honors because tackles were not an official statistic back then. Huh. So whatever your sports information director says it is.
Wow.
Who decide they want to push.
Yeah.
And it's, a defensive player is not going to get many honors on a losing team. Huh. And we go to Arkansas. They had a good team, a real good team, a lot of good players. And Neal gets hurt in the first half. And and Mark Jackson had to come in. Mm-hmm. And I think we scored on like 3 consecutive plays to close out the half. We got score, penalty, score, penalty, score. And we needed every one of them. It was a close game. And we needed a goal line stop. We needed a 4th down stop. So it was a real close game till the end. But nobody, really knew that the way things played out, we had to have that game.
Yeah. Dropped one to A&M. 20-0. Texas rolls around. It was late in the year. November 9th was the Texas game. Tell everybody that wasn't around then how dominant Texas really was.
Well, can I tell you about the A&M game first?
Yeah.
This is a chance for a team to start doubting themselves and fritter things away, because the way we lost that game, the defense played an outstanding game. They ran a running play. One of their running backs fumbles the ball. It bounces 10 yards forward and up in the air, and Carl Roaches, their track star wide receiver, catches it like a pass, runs it for a touchdown.
Good grief.
But that's one score.
Yeah.
The offense had a bad day. I mean, A&M had an outstanding defense. They had NFL talent at linebacker, at defensive line, and back end, all 3 levels. And they had a first round cornerback. Ed Simonetti and Garth Donato both had great pro careers. We couldn't get anything going. We've turned the ball over several times. They intercepted a screen pass at our 1-yard line and scored a touchdown.
Oh.
I remember the Trahan kids that played here.
Yeah.
It was his dad,
Oh,
Warren
really?
Trahan.
Yeah.
And then they got 2 field goals on 2 fumbles, and so we ended up losing 20-0.
Wow.
But they had dominant talent. They really did. Texas also had dominant talent.
Yeah.
we scored first. We ran either a hitch or an out to L.C. Jackson. They missed a tackle, touchdown right off the bat. But then the defense, uncharacteristically, we hadn't done that this year. We had a couple of breakdowns. And people that don't really understand football have the total wrong impression about the wishbone. They think they line up and just, beat you and knock you back off the ball and smash mouth, and that's not at all what the game was. Texas had great players, but they had a couple of offensive linemen, like guards, 5'11", 215 pounds. But they're very agile. They had what they call scramble block. They'd crawl out and get on your legs, split you out by running the option down the line sideways and make huge creases so it's like a kickoff return. They just turn up, turn up, turn up, turn up. And we were having a hard time with it. We messed up on a pitch, and Raymond Claiborne was a track star that played for the New England Patriots. I think as a defensive back, catches a long touchdown. And Corky made just an unbelievable adjustment. He put Leslie Benson in at nose tackle, who's a lot bigger. Other guys were pretty small. And he had the linebackers just walk up on the line. And, I didn't have that great of a game because at that point, all I'm doing is wrestling with an offensive guard. But it worked. He just made a solid wall that when they tried to run the ball in there, it wasn't anywhere to go. And they weren't willing to give up, what has worked for them. And 24/7 lead. Let's just keep doing it.
Right. So
Johnny Green blocks a punt. Right. That was at halftime.
Right.
Johnny Green blocks a punt. We score, and then all of a sudden it's 24-14. And then they keep trying to run the ball, and they can't. And I'm not sure if it was the next score or the next score, but somewhere in this sequence after the block punt, I know Neal scored after the block punt on a keeper around the right end of the south end zone. And, from the bench, you think, oh, man, it's wide open. He's going to score. Then you're going, run, Neal.
Get there.
Run, Neal. Run, Neal.
I've seen the video.
And he made it by about an inch, in the corner.
Yeah.
And
his description of that is like he's got a piano on his back. That's his description, not mine.
But it looked like it was wide open, but it got tight. Anyway.
But let me ask you about the halftime. Was that a change by Corky Nelson
at halftime?
Scheme-wise at halftime? Y'all were down 24-7.
Yes. And he just basically put 7 guys on the line of scrimmage.
Wow. Okay.
He says, you're going to have to run it outside or throw it.
Yeah. Worked.
And it worked. And then after Johnny Green blocked the punt, and then we went down and scored. I don't know if it was the next series after we stopped him, but Ricky Thompson caught a little slant and ricocheted off the 2 safeties. Have you ever seen that play?
Yes.
He kind of just bounced off of them and got a quick score there. And I don't know, we probably got a conventional one after that involving a lot of Steve Beard.
Yeah.
And then Bubba kicked 2 late field goals.
Yeah.
And I remember the last one, it was, because as a player, I never felt like you had it until you had more than a touchdown. One bad play can change it. But I remember when he made the last one, and I knew we had it then.
34-24, coming from 24-7 down at halftime. What was the atmosphere like?
Oh, it was absolute jubilation.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas had won 7 straight conference championships. So that means from the time I was in the 9th grade, until up to that point.
Yeah.
And I was going to go to Texas. I mean, they recruited me, and recruiting didn't start near as early back then as it did now. But, when Coach Roll came to my house, and I was all in, but the Austin thing I like Austin. I think it's a nice town, but for coming from a small town, Texas was kind of in growing pains. They hadn't done any mass transit. They had all these students. It was like if you were at Baylor, you'd have to park here and walk to your dorm over at Martin, and a few other things just about the campus. I mean, I didn't feel like. You got to realize that was, Summer of Love was 1969. My last football season was the fall of 70. An awful lot of the student body at Texas considered football part of the establishment, and they were kind of anti-establishment.
Huh.
Now, they certainly had a huge base,
right?
Because they had, 100 years of alumni before that.
Right.
But it just didn't feel right. And I liked Waco. I liked Baylor. Mickey did a good job selling me. The players here did a good job selling me. Pat Culpepper and Mickey both used the approach of, you can only go down there. Can't you build something here? Which was a good sales pitch, but I kind of felt like it was a Ponzi scheme after 72 and after 73. But,
that's great.
But anyway, it was so happy that there's a picture of me that was around that I was holding up my helmet in one hand and the horns in the other, and that was not to do a horns down or mock down. That was kind of like that was like Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, that's great.
I knocked out Sonny Liston.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, to me, if it was a sign of respect, not a sign of disrespect.
So you're all Southwest Conference All-American your senior year. Tackles, so they just kind of, whoever was media relations just kind of...
I don't know. It was not an official stat. Okay. I have no idea what the stats were.
There are numbers, though.
Never seen them.
Really?
No.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I would think there's something.
They would say something in the paper sometimes, some way,
Okay.
but it was not an official stat.
Okay.
I don't think there are any records or anything like that.
Okay. That's interesting.
Points that were for touchdowns and yards and things like that.
Didn't keep stats, defensive stats.
There were no sacks because linebackers didn't rush the passer.
Yeah.
because they didn't throw the ball.
Yeah. So you beat Texas. That doesn't win anything for you.
No, we still
keep
had to
winning.
We still had to beat.
TCU was in there.
Was TCU not before?
Were they?
I know we had to beat Tech.
Okay.
And it started out bad. Mm-hmm. They came out with an unbalanced line. I don't remember if they probably just put an extra tackle over. And, we were what they call a 3-4 defense today. We called it a 5-2.
Mm-hmm.
And we were leaving gaps open, and they marched down the field and scored, and the coaches were going nuts. And they were saying, do this. We're going to, and I finally just said, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to move our nose tackle up over that guard. It doesn't matter what numbers they're wearing. Mm-hmm. It's the same number of linemen.
Yeah.
We're just going to move over one spot and line up and play.
You did that? You said that?
Yeah.
No, nice.
And then we were able to stop them. It's funny how one little nick, if you let it bother you, one little wrinkle can just. Yeah. I mean, look what Art Browns did to North Carolina.
Just run crazy.
I mean, they had no idea what was coming. Yeah. Just changed one thing, and anyway, so it was close, but we hung on and won, and then SMU had a really good team, because this was not too terribly many years before they got the death penalty for the way they acquired players. Mm-hmm. So they had a lot of good players. I mean, they had just a lot of them, and most prominently probably Louis Kelcher, who was first round draft choice and NFL All-Pro for many years, and the way that Aubrey Schultz played in that game, I think almost single-handedly took him to All-America status.
Wow. Yeah.
It was it's one of those games that. Leading up to it, you say, we beat Texas, but if we don't beat these guys, it's all for nothing.
Right. Then you get together and you watch the Texas A&M game.
We did, and I've forgotten the exact order on this, but I believe that SMU beat A&M the week before.
Oh, okay.
So, we were looking bad at that point because if A&M's undefeated and we're undefeated and they lose one game, they've got head-to-head.
Right.
Unlike TCU Baylor in 2014, I mean.
Yeah,
so
we'll go there.
We were going to be out. But then SMU beats A&M, and then we're watching the game, and it was one of those days that happens in Texas. It's pretty normal that it's pretty temperate in the fall, but big norther comes through and it's freezing and the wind's blowing, it's icy, and Texas scores. A&M gets the ball in the kickoff. They fumble the kickoff. Texas picks up, they score again. And I mean, like in 5 minutes, the game was over.
Wow.
So, but we still had to beat Rice.
Right.
But, Rice was no pushover, but we were better than them, and we took care of business.
Mm-hmm. This is 50 years ago, And you guys having a reunion this year, 50th anniversary of that 74 season. And the last count that I heard, there's like 67 of your teammates are going to be here.
Wow.
What is it that have you guys stayed so close?
Well, if you go from being, just stomped upon, and then you get to win something, it's big. It's what Pat Culpepper and Mickey Sullivan sold to us to come here.
50 years later, it's fun to talk about, isn't it? Fun to remember.
It is.
Yeah.
Football is an unforgiving sport. It's so hot, you feel like you're going to die. They wouldn't give us any water back then. A little bit by the time we're in college. Not before. And not even the NFL at one of my stops. Bud Grant came over to me after I ended up with them one year and goes, "Man, you come from Texas, it's 107 down there? All my players would die if I coached down there because I just can't bring myself to give them a water break."
Oh gosh.
he was a really nice, but down to earth. This is the way we're going to do it. But anyway, you got the heat, you got the injuries, you've got to play hurt, or everybody's heard this cliche, but the most important ability is availability. Mm-hmm. Coach can't use you if you can't suit up and play. Mm-hmm. And so you have to play hurt, and you put all that into it, and it's just not fun to lose. It's not fun to get up in the morning.
Great memory, 74. One final question. It's often referred to as the miracle on the Brazos. I know how Coach Teaff feels about that. He doesn't like the term miracle. It was not a miracle. You guys put in the work and won it. How do you feel about that?
He respectfully has entitled his opinion. He's earned it.
Yes.
But I think it was a miracle.
Really?
Not a miracle that we won, just that, that we were able to take such a bad start. And not just that game.
Yeah.
That we could take the year before and shed that stink of losing and that aura of things are going to go wrong. And then starting the season off again, and then starting a winning streak, getting kicked down again, and then having the coaching ability, the talent, and the resolve among the players to shake that off and come back and win. I call that a miracle.
Wow. Well, enjoy the year as we celebrate that 50th anniversary of the 74 team all year long. We're going to celebrate all year long.
Well, thank you, John. Let's hope they can start it over again this year.
Let's do that.
Hey, Baylor fans, this is your call to gear up with Harley-Davidson of Waco. Whether you're hitting the open road or tailgating at McLean Stadium, we've got the ride to match your Bear pride. Check out our wide selection of new and pre-owned motorcycles, visit our service department, or shop all the latest gear and accessories to show off your Baylor spirit and Harley pride. Visit us today and find your freedom on two wheels. Harley-Davidson of Waco, where Baylor fans never ride alone. Visit in-store or at hdwaco.com. Sic Em Bears.